What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Next Third, Best Third. I'm hijacking David's podcast because I'm going to interview him today. So welcome, David, to your podcast. It's so great to have you.
It's so great to be here on my own podcast. Thanks, Juliana.
We just thought this would be a treat for you to hear from David about what he's going through, his passion for this podcast. So what I want to ask you first is tell me something that you are learning in this season from working your pillars.
From working my pillars. Okay, so the 5 pillars, right, is cognitive health, which is your thought life, your physical condition, emotional well-being, relationships, and then those things that kind of war against your soul, you know, the fear, the doubts, and things like that. Yeah. And probably one of the things that has really been most impactful has been emotional. Okay. And I shared with you that, I started taking acting classes, and this is a very intense acting school. It's been fun. It was a boyhood dream that I wanted to do this, and I'm fulfilling it. But it's serious work. And one of the things that has been exposed in it is how, I always thought I was a real emotional guy for a man, very emotional.
I'm in tune.
Yeah, I'm in tune, I'm good. And, but what I realized is there's certain things that were just buried or very shallow. And I avoided certain emotions, right? And I felt shame over certain emotions. And I realized that that these emotions are really something that are useful. They're good. They can be if you handle them correctly, right? Yeah. If they don't control you, but you start to control them. Mm-hmm. And so literally what this work is doing is I'm excavating these emotions. Wow. And I'm looking at them. Wow. And I'm looking at them through the lens of how can they serve me? Mm-hmm. How have these affected me in the past in a negative way? Mm-hmm. And how can they serve me going forward? Yeah. And I'm coming to terms with some stuff. Okay. Yeah. And it's been enlightening, it's been freeing, and it's really caught me off by surprise. Yeah.
And what do you do with that, right? So I think the way you're sharing about it, it can just sound like, he's just taking some acting classes. But this is actually such deep, profound, and powerful work. And it takes an incredible amount of courage. And it doesn't have a instant feedback, instant gratification relationship to it, right? It's other people outside of you might think, you don't have time for that. Why are you doing that? Right? Like, really though. So how do you keep showing up for that when it makes you feel everything? It makes you face so much. How do you keep choosing that and showing up for it?
Well, first off, I made a commitment that I would, but it is uncomfortable. It's hard. It's much more difficult than I ever imagined. I had no idea what I was getting into, right?
Maybe that helps a little bit.
None whatsoever. I was blindsided. I was blindsided. And it's been uncomfortable. And I'll be honest with you, there's times that I thought, I'm just going to pull back because I am very busy, right? Yeah. And I was over the holidays, we took a break, and then we come back after the holidays, and I'm thinking, I've got so much on my plate. I've got the podcast, I've got my business, I've got my ministry, I've got all this stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And I was just about to quit, and one of my daughters slapped me upside my head. She goes, "Dad, this is the only thing that you do for yourself." Wow. She says, "Don't quit." She says, "Don't quit. Keep doing it." So I said, "Okay, dear, I won't quit." And I'm glad I haven't, because as I go in, and again, I go with trepidation sometimes, to be honest with you, Juliana, because it's like, oh, what am I going to do tonight? What's going to dig out of me here that I have to deal with? But totally, it's been good.
Now, you also are in a season of pioneering, and I feel like this is worth noting and worth mentioning because there's so many people that talk a good talk, that have so many ideas, but they never make those ideas a reality. They never sacrifice to allow those things to be birthed, to come forth into the world. So what has that cost you, and what does that look like? Because you might even say at this point in your life that my time has passed, or that all the excuses can come up. So what has it been like to pioneer what you're doing in your life?
It's been scary. Right? It's been scary, but it's been probably the single most rewarding thing in my life. Is better than it's ever been. Yeah. Some of my followers have heard the story, but it's been a little over 7.5 years ago. I went through a devastation in my life. A marriage just broke up out of the blue, and I remember going for a walk one day, and I was just so angry, and I was at the end, and I just was crying out to, why is this happening to me? This isn't fair, And I started going down this litany of all the reasons that this sucked. All the reasons that this was horrible.
Fair.
And nothing's going to be the same. My life's this. And I just heard this voice deep inside of me say, but it could be better.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, you might not believe that God speaks, but God spoke to
Sure
me.
does.
And he said, it could be better. And immediately something inside of me opened up, and it was hope. And so I said, okay, I'm going to make the next third of my life the best third of my life. And there is such an intentionality. And this is, as you know, you're very accomplished. You've got podcasts and you write books. There's a cost to this, showing up and putting out an episode every week and working hard and, creating this. But it's really so fulfilling. And this is the best part of my life.
I love that. Yeah. It's so good to hear.
Yeah.
And helpful to hear that it's hard. I think sometimes when we are showing up, we expect it to be easy. Like, I finally committed. I finally made a decision. It all gets easier from there. And actually, no. it turns into the fiery furnace real quick.
Yeah, and you still have to keep showing up because it's so easy to get complacent, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to pull back and say, oh, I've done enough, or I'll take a break now. But really, just like you, I look at it like it's an investment in others, right? Like, I'm here to serve. I'm on assignment.
Yeah.
And if I can, my goal is to inspire people. I started targeting men, but now we're finding women are following us too.
Yeah.
But it's to challenge people to say, hey, if you're courageous enough, if you're really courageous enough to be vulnerable and examine your life, right? Take a real honest appraisal. Where am I? How did I get here? And am I happy with this? Is this what I want the rest of my life to look like?
Yeah.
Because the choices we make today, we're investing in the future Juliana, the future David, right? And those who follow us and who will benefit from it.
Yep.
And it just breaks my heart when I see guys who are, in their 50s, 40s, and in their 60s, and they're complacent, and they're just, it's like they're settling. Yeah. And it's like going, don't settle.
Yeah.
I mean, modern medicine's going to keep us alive longer than ever before, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what kind of life do you want to live? So you add years to your life. Big deal. I want to add life to my years.
So good. And don't settle for safe, right?
No, safe isn't fun.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the thrill when you go to an amusement park? It's go on the scariest rides, right?
Usually, yeah.
I don't like amusement parks, by the way. So
he's like, don't invite me to any.
Yeah, no, I won't go, but
Yeah. Well, I think you're bringing up a great point too. Sometimes we think that in life we'll just go harder in the wrong direction, right? Like the answer is to just drive harder, to push more, to just keep going. But it sounds like you slowed down, you did this honest appraisal, and then through doing that, you came up with the 5 pillars. Is that where they came to be?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as you are being accountable to modeling these 5 pillars in the world and to being these different versions of you in different places. Like, some people identify you as this person. Some people identify you in this role. Some people do that. How can you be true and authentic with these pillars and steward them well? How are you finding yourself doing that?
Well, it's a challenge. And I love that you said there's an accountability because people are watching. As our podcast is growing, right? We get thousands of people on views. The people in my sphere of influence has grown.
For sure.
So there's an accountability and there's a heaviness to that, right?
There's a burden.
There's a burden to that. So I have to go through weekly, sometimes daily. I know you do your daily 5 that we talked about in another episode, but I have to look at myself and take honest appraisal myself. I have to examine my thought life.
Yeah.
I have to examine my thought life a lot. I have to examine, how am I feeding myself, fueling myself? Am I working out? I have to hold myself accountable to that. Emotionally, I'm doing a great deep dive there, so I'm pretty good right there.
Yeah.
But relationships, right? I mean, the relationships is like, who do I choose to invest in? And am I investing in new people all the time? Because that's the challenge for me. It's not just to settle. I mean, I just keep pushing and pushing the envelope, which is hard because people want a piece of you, right? And there's only so much of you to go around. So it takes time to, you have to be careful. Yeah. But I can give a little to a lot, and then the ones that I want to give a lot to, there's a little of those, a few of those, but I do that. And then the other is the spiritual side, right? And those are continuing to battle against the lies, against my true identity.
What have some of those been coming up for you now that you're showing up fully or bigger?
Yeah, yeah. I spent years self-sabotaging. And the reason I self-sabotaged is because I really had a sense that I was unworthy. I didn't deserve success. I didn't deserve good things.
Yeah.
And that came from a childhood trauma where I felt unprotected, like I wasn't worth protecting.
Yeah.
And so that evolved into, well, I'm just not worth anything. And I went for a long time, even as a man that everybody liked.
Yeah.
I was always well liked. I always had,
Yeah, seemed happy, put together,
Right.
joyful.
and yet I still carried this lie, that I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of hard work to break through that. But again, I've broke through that because I've been addressing the other pillars, because they all go together.
Totally.
Your thought life, your emotions, the lies against you, your physical, it
Yeah.
all's tied together. You know that, and you
Yeah.
do that in your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has there been a big sneaky lie that's been coming up lately?
Wow.
You know what I mean? When you have like the devil on this shoulder and like the happy high version of you on this shoulder.
It's not sneaky. It's one that pops up every now and then, and it's the one that you're going to ultimately fail. One day this is all, sooner than later, this thing's just all going to, your whole life's just going to fall apart. The podcast's
Yeah.
going to go this way.
Yeah.
These things, you're never going to be an actor. People
Yeah.
ask me, do you want to be an actor? And I says, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not just taking classes. I want to be an actor.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, what, in plays? I said, no, I want to be in a, Oscar-winning movie, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah.
But that thought of eventually you're going to fail, but that's tied to that self-sabotage.
For
That's
sure.
tied to those old lies. So it kind of
sure.
comes through a side door,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like it's so powerful to hear that those don't go away,
No.
right? Like you don't evolve to this place where you're immune to fears and to
No.
lies and these internal adversities and insecurities that are just part of the human experience. And they come up the more you step into new things, and you're doing so much new. And I
Yeah.
think that it's great permission to other people to wrestle with thoughts and still show up anyway,
Right.
which you're clearly doing so
Yeah.
well, but also to be imperfect about it. Okay, that's there, and
That's right.
I'm still going to show up, and I'm still going to dare greatly, and I'm still going to model the way.
Yeah, and we're not called to perfection. We're not, and then we're not even called to a destination.
Yeah.
I've heard it said that destiny is not a destination.
Yeah.
It's this journey that we're on.
Yeah.
That's our destiny, and
Yeah.
and I don't want the journey to stop. And so many
Yeah.
people draw the line and say, well, that I've arrived.
Yeah.
Maybe you've arrived at this point that you hate,
Yeah.
but you're saying, I'm done.
Yeah.
Don't be done.
Yeah. Don't be done.
Don't be done.
I love it. Tell me too about this conversation you recently had with your daughter and how she so beautifully made space for this moment to see you. Explain that story and what that was like and what that did for you.
Yeah, so I've got an amazing son and 5 daughters, and
Okay.
you know that. And one of my daughters, I have a great relationship with them, but this one daughter of mine, she came over to the house, and we were sitting there at my place, and we were talking, and since I've been going through this next third best third, one of the great things is she has. We've been able to have conversations that I didn't know were as meaningful. I didn't, right? And like she told me, she said, and I didn't share this with you, I don't think, but she said one time saying, Dad, you were a great dad. We had a great life and all these kind of things. But one thing that you didn't do is you didn't teach us how to conflict, how to have healthy conflict. That was because their mother buried everything, and I avoided everything. And we used to brag. I used to brag that we never had a fight. Well, that's not good. That's not a healthy
Denial.
thing. That's not healthy. You need to have conflict because healthy things grow through conflict.
Yeah.
You build your muscles through conflict, right? Everything has conflict. Even a seed has to have conflict with the ground to come through it, right?
Right.
So we need conflict. And she said, Dad, because you didn't, we didn't come to you. If she was talking about herself especially, she says, I didn't come to you because I didn't know how to have conflict with you because I never saw it,
Yeah.
And so we've had some really deep conversations about this. And I
Amazing.
mean, it's just been so good. But the other day, we were there and having coffee, and I was telling her about possibly dropping out of acting because of my busyness and, you know, all these kind of things. And she says, "Don't you dare." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "Don't you dare." And she says, because she goes, "Dad," she goes, "you do so much for everybody." She goes, "This is one of the few things that you've ever really done for yourself."
Yeah.
And then she said this, she goes, "And I want to tell you," she says, "I like this version of Dad better than any previous version."
Yeah. And what happened to you when she said that?
Oh my God. I'll cry right now.
Yeah.
I just broke down. I was like going, that's such a great thing to hear. I mean,
Yeah.
what more could you want
Yeah.
than to hear from someone that is close to you, that they're proud that you're improving,
Yes.
right? And that's what I
Yes.
want for all these men and all these people, these followers. I want them to have those experiences where people who are close to them say, "Man, you are getting better.
Yeah.
You're a better man. You're a better woman today
Yes.
than you've ever been."
Yeah. So beautiful.
How rewarding.
It's so rewarding, and it's so helpful to hear and to see. And I just want to honor your vulnerability, right, and your heart for these men, because we need men modeling this.
Yeah.
We need men to have permission to show up in this way too. And these breakthroughs are everything. Like
Yes, they
that
are.
breakthrough was a hard-won breakthrough, and some that are never accessed, and you happen to experience it. And there's so much now that becomes possible because of that. And so it's just so interesting to see. But as you look at your future now, what are you most excited and expectant about? Because you're getting wins like this.
Yeah.
What are you now most excited and expectant about?
Well, you know, for me, so much of it starts with the legacy of my family.
Yeah.
You know, I am excited and expecting to see my own kids just grow and pursue and never settle, never be complacent, to do the hard work.
Yeah.
You know, to challenge themselves, right?
Yeah.
To not believe the lies
Yeah.
that they've been, you know, because we all get them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As great a dad as I was, you know, they all get them, right? They all carry stuff with them.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other is I'm dreaming big, right? I'm dreaming big. I expect Next Third Best Third is going to become just a national and international platform.
Yeah.
I really
Careful now, you're prophesying.
I'm prophesying. No, because because it's so needed, you know, and I care so much for the guys who don't even know me, who follow me, right? I care so much for them, and I want so badly for you to succeed and to have a rich, full life.
Yeah.
I'm excited about those two things probably most of all, and
Yeah.
you know, I just think I'm going to continue to grow and succeed, and
Yeah.
I don't know what that's going to look like,
Yeah.
and I don't really care because it's an adventure. I'm on an adventure at this point in my life, you know, and it's so much fun.
It's beautiful. There's a moment where the work that is so scary and so intimidating and so initially hard to say yes to and commit
Yeah.
to becomes play,
Yeah.
becomes wonder, becomes adventure. Like there's a scripture in Daniel that says that those who know their God will be strong and do great exploits.
Wow.
So I'm like, every season is exploit season.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're just out here doing exploits.
And so much of it is surrender and obedience, right?
Yeah.
I had no grid for what I'm doing here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I had no grid, no experience of starting I just started a podcast,
Right.
you know? And I had started this platform, and it's just growing and growing and doing so well. And you have to have that resolution in your heart and your spirit to say, you know, I'm going to pursue these new exploits. I'm going to do this,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And it's so important because you didn't have to,
Oh no,
right? And I think that's what can shatter some assumptions, right? Which we all know what those do. They make out of me
yes,
and you.
right, that's right. Come on,
Yeah, never assume.
you went there.
Never assume. But, right, I think it's, well, you don't have to do that. You already have this business, or you don't have to do that, or you already have this ministry, or, right? So it's just don't do that. Play small.
Right.
And you can have voices just saying you're going to fail or you shouldn't show up that way. And that, I think, is normal
Right.
to the fact that you're actually doing something great.
Yeah, and to be real transparent is this has cost me. I mean, not just time and everything. It's cost me money.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
this is a big investment.
Yes.
You know that, and you know, we've set up as a nonprofit, and people are donating. You know, which is so cool. And I'm starting
Yeah.
to see people partner with me.
Yeah.
And And what's encouraging about that is not just the fact that, it's not going to all come out of my pocket,
Yeah.
but it's that people are buying in and they're seeing the value.
Yeah.
Because people invest in what they value.
Yeah.
Right. And, but yeah, no, this was something, there was no real benefit to me to start this, except I knew I was supposed to.
Yeah. Obedience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this. And I think that this is helpful for other people to hear and to know as they are facing this conviction in their heart. Like, I feel this thing burning. It like keeps me up at night. There's an urgency around it. People need this. And what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
There's a quote that says, there's no greater pain than an untold story living on the inside of you.
Wow.
And so it's like what you don't express will kill you. Quite literally. It's what you keep buried, what you decide to be aware of, but to not express will literally destroy you. Right? And sometimes we get these glimpses of seeing somebody else do what we're not courageous enough to do. And then it stirs us up to be like, no, like the thing that God says to me or the thing that's on my heart that's burning within me, I can't not do it.
Right.
I will be the one that does do it. No matter what it costs, no matter what it takes, against all odds, I will show up.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. And that gives you rewards. But they can often be hidden. A lot of the public victories are won in private. We're rewarded publicly for those, but there's so much process. And I think that's this beautiful offering that you're giving to listeners, is that there's so much that you've had to decide to do, commit to do, dare to do, continue to intend to do.
Right.
And so many things that do keep you up at night and that you wrestle with and that you question because you're a human.
Yeah.
And you're not immune, right? But so many times people think, oh, well, you must have come from that background, or you just must be well-resourced, or you must have just been educated, or whatever. They create a whole case for why you're winning, and they might not be. But we can't do that. We just have to learn how to show up with what's in our heart.
And I think there's so many people who are listening right now, and so many people that we run across who do have dreams and do have aspirations and these things that maybe they thought of doing a long time ago.
Yeah.
And fear and doubt and complacency have kept them from it.
Yeah.
Fear and complacency and doubt, those are graveyards where dreams go to die,
For
right?
sure.
But the one thing I want to encourage everybody is it's never, ever too late.
Yeah.
I don't care where you are. It's
Time is
never
now.
too late. My father, who is not a spiritual man at all, but he used to have this saying that I'll never forget, but he says, today's the first day of the rest of your life.
Yeah.
He would say that over and over again, you know. And back then it just, something I heard my dad say, But now it's truly the way I live. Today's first day of the rest of my life.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with it?
Yeah. What are we creating today? What are
That's
we
right.
pioneering today? What are we establishing today?
That's right.
And that's a choice. And so that's worthy
In the
of...
midst of my daily fears, my daily doubts, and my daily challenge. I mean, if you don't think I have fear or doubt or, all this stuff that comes up, I still have to get up every day and deal with the same thing everybody else has to.
But how empowering, because we live in such a curated world where everything is presented and manicured and all of that. And usually the more manicured it is, the worse it is beneath the surface. It is, right?
Yeah.
But when you can be vulnerable, when you can be honest, when you can still show up, when you can invite people to be a part of that journey, which you're doing in real time, then what's their excuse?
That's right.
Right? We find there are none. There's no excuses, right? Now is all you have. And if now is all you have, you got to work the now.
That's right.
You got to work
So
the
good.
now. So I'm curious as we wrap here, what if, I love asking this question on the God's Vibes podcast.
Okay.
So I'm just going to toss it to you. Many, many years from now, when it's your time to transition from this earth, and you can't take whatever you build and establish. So you can't take the podcast, you can't take books, you can't take your Oscar with you. You can't take those pieces of work with you, right? But you can leave one piece of advice that can ultimately change the course of somebody's life. What would you say?
Wow. I think I would say the same thing that was said to me out in that walk that I was out that day. And it would be, no matter what you're facing, it could be better.
Yeah. Amen. There you have it. We get points for making him cry. whatever you're facing, it can get better. You heard it here from David. Thank you for the absolute honor and privilege of getting to hijack your podcast today.
This is fun. Thanks.
Let's make your next half your best half, the next third your best third.
However you want to look at it, but it's next third your best
next
third.
third your best third. Make sure that if you are not subscribed, you're only hanging. Make it a commitment, just like he has in showing up with you guys. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. Make sure if this is blessing you that you share the love with somebody else too.